Hello Internet, I'm Heather and I read a lot, and today I'm really excited because we're talking about one of my favorite authors of all time, and that is Miss Agatha Christie herself. We are talking about this novel, Death on the Nile, and we're talking about it because the movie comes out next month and I'm so excited. David Suchet will always 100% be Hercule Poirot to me. However, that being said, I really did enjoy Murder on the Orient Express with Kenneth Branagh. Never say his name right. I have great respect for him as an actor. I can hear it a million times and I'll never say it correctly. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. I liked that it took more of like an action adventure approach to a lot of just the kind of sit down interview tactics that Poirot usually does when he is solving a murder. Anyway, I also want to apologize about the lighting. I just don't have a great place to sit down and film right now. So I'm going to separate this video into two parts. I'm going to separate it into a spoiler-free, just kind of my general opinions, thoughts, and feelings. And then we'll get into some spoilers, kind of what I hope to see in the movie. And I don't know, I'm really excited to talk about this book. So if you've never read an Agatha Christie book or you've never read a Poirot book, he is just the most charming detective who uses logic and the most minute of details to piece together things. And he's known for just kind of like sitting back and letting his gray cells go to work. And this book was no different, except that he's on vacation. So to kind of give you an overview of this book, we are following a ton of characters, but there's kind of some primary players in the game. So we have got a woman named Lynette, and Lynette is an heiress. She has a ton of money. She's invested in a lot of land, and she's very well known as kind of being like a socialite. She's expected to marry this other rich dude. We have her best friend from kind of like childhood and university days named Jeanette, and Jeanette does not come from money, and she's in love with a guy named Simon who also really does not come from money. And Simon and Jacqueline, who also goes by Jackie in the book, they want to get married. And Jeanette is kind of scrambling for ways to help them make money so that they can enjoy a happy life together and they can have the honeymoon they've always dreamed of in Egypt. Well, she calls up Lynette and she's like, hey, so I'm engaged to this really cool guy. His name is Simon. He knows a lot about land and stuff. So I was wondering if you needed like a groundskeeper type situation. And Lynette's like, okay, cool, bring him up here and let's see what's going on. And so he gets hired, and here is the scandal. Here's the scandal of it all. Lynette and Simon end up getting together and married. What? She betrays her best friend. She marries her man, and Jacqueline seems to be out for revenge and starts stalking Lynette and Simon's every move. She stalks them all the way to Lynette and Simon's honeymoon in, you guessed it, Egypt. And she's just there every step of the way, the most annoying little stalker, except, does she have a reason to be a stalker? Absolutely. Her best friend took her man. And it's here, of course, that we meet Hercule Poirot, who happens to be vacationing in Egypt. And the poor man can never take a vacation without getting wrangled in to solving a murder. And that's what happens here. So I'm going to start out by giving you my overall rating and just general opinions on the book. Keeping my book bullet journal and writing down my reviews in here has been so helpful, and it's going to continue to be so helpful for these sit down videos where I just review a book at a time, because I have everything here. I've started using the call pile review method this year, which is really helping me be a little bit more objective in my reviews and to average together my thoughts and feelings a little bit better. So a call pile review talks about characters, it talks about the atmosphere, it talks about the writing style, the plot, the intrigue, the logistical issues, and the enjoyment. And so after averaging everything together on a scale of 1 to 10, my overall thoughts were a 7.3 for Death on the Nile, which is a 4-star once you average it out and look at everything. So Agatha Christie, when she writes her characters, She will really focus in on the main players, and you'll get to know them, and you'll kind of get to do a little psychological analysis of them as you're on the way. And this book was no different. We definitely got into the heads of Poirot, because duh. And then Lynette and Jacqueline and Simon. We really got to know them. That said, there are a ton of other players who are just as likely suspects as our main players, even though we don't spend as much time with them. My cats are being distracting. We're on this cruise ship on the Nile, and we have reason to suspect every single passenger who's on here of the murder that occurs. And I am not going to say who gets murdered in this spoiler-free section, because I think that is just as much a part of the fun as solving the murder. The atmosphere was okay, and it depends on how we're looking at atmosphere. If we're thinking of setting, I wish we had gotten a little bit more like thrown into Egypt and really felt like we were there. But that said, apart from the setting, the atmosphere was very tense the entire way through. You didn't know when the murder was going to happen. You didn't know if something else very intense was going to happen, and it kind of kept you on the edge of your seat. Agatha Christie's writing style is not for everyone. If you are wanting to read this before you see the movie, or maybe you've seen the movie and you want to go back and read the book and see where the inspiration came from, just know it's not for everybody, and there are some dated thoughts and opinions in this novel. Agatha Christie is a product of her time. There is some racist, sexist talk, and I feel like it's not fair to go into a review without warning people who have not read Agatha Christie that she is very much a product of her time. Because she worked in anthropology, I like to believe that if she was still alive today, she would not hold on to those views as much as she did when she was writing. So just go in expecting a little bit of sexism, a little bit of racism, and know that it was a product of its time. It's going to feel a little bit dated. Also, Agatha Christie is straight to the point when she writes. You're not going to get a ton of flowery descriptions. Like I said, I wish there was more detail on Egypt. But I enjoy it. It's what I grew up reading, and it's really what got me into the mystery genre. So you're not going to get great quotes to take away from this, or the most stunning descriptions of things. But I think it's enjoyable. I don't think it's too like short and choppy that you're not getting anything out of it, but I also don't think it's so descriptive that you're going to be like, wow, I wish I wrote down all of the quotes from Death on the Nile. It just touched my heart. Just be forewarned. I kind of already went over the plot of the book, so I'm going to skip that little section. Intrigue. Obviously, she is the queen of intrigue. You can't go wrong picking up most Agatha Christie novels. She's got a couple duds in there. When she's written as many books as she has, you just got to expect that they're not all going to be spectacular 10 out of 10 books. But she's a master of intrigue. You will second guess every prediction that you make. I did. I thought I knew the answer going in. Then she did a ton of stuff to change my mind about what I thought. And then the ending just kind of like made me go, what? So she's the master of intrigue. If you want a good historical mystery set somewhere else with intrigue, check it out. Logistical issues. I will get more into this in the spoiler section of this video, but there are some. I had about 4. One of them involving a character's name being used twice for 2 different people that made me think they were the same person, and I kept wondering why nobody was addressing this issue. So that's an issue I have. Another logistical issue that I feel okay saying is I felt like she just did not expound upon the way I would be acting if I was on a cruise ship, a locked room, where I knew a murderer was running around. And part of that is just because she doesn't get overly descriptive in her writing, but I was like, why aren't these people more afraid? Because I was afraid. So there's a couple more logistical things. I'll talk about them more in the spoiler section, but just know that you might have some unanswered questions. And of course, enjoyment. I can't read most Agatha Christie books and not walk away from them saying that I enjoyed them. And I really enjoyed Death on the Nile. I'm even more excited for the movie because I think that the movie is going to fix some of the racism and the sexism that's in here. And I really think we're going to just get thrown into a beautiful landscape with stunning outfits, because have you seen the trailer? Everybody looks beautiful. And I just can't wait. So if you haven't read the book yet, I recommend clicking away at this point so I can just kind of talk. I think I'm just going to go through what I wrote down, and we can have a little discussion about Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile. So if you have read the book, or you don't care to read the book and you just want to hang out here, now's the time to click away or stay, depending on which camp you are in. So again, here is my bullet journal pages for Death on the Nile. Got a little bit messy with our border, but we're still learning. So here's what I wrote about the characters for Death on the Nile. Kind of a throwback to what I was saying a little while ago. For the majority, character development is not why one reads a Christie novel. Poirot is charming, but he is charming in one novel to the next. Christie is plot over character for sure. That said, I did enjoy the more in-depth looks at Simon, Jackie, and Lynette, and that echoes what I said earlier. Because they end up being the primary players, I kind of understand why we get a little bit more into their heads, and they are kind of the cause of all of the conflicts in the novel, since Jackie stole Lynette's man. And I think that is both a good and a bad thing, that we got to spend so much time with them. I felt right off the bat that either Jackie or Simon, or some sort of combination of the two, is why Lynette ended up being murdered. And in the end, I ended up being right. And the main reason I had those suspicions was because we spend so much time with them and getting to know them and their flaws and their history. And so, as one who reads a lot of mysteries, you're like, why would I suspect anybody else when we're getting all of the information about these primary players? So that's kind of the issue I have with characters. I will always love Poirot. I know he's kind of a steady one book to the next. Occasionally he's got a little bit more of a character dilemma thrown in, like in Murder on the Orient Express, when he had to decide if justice over what he felt was right is the direction to go in. So occasionally you get those bigger character moments for Poirot, but overall he's Poirot one book to the next, and I enjoy that. So atmosphere, here's what I wrote. Christie does atmosphere very well. Being trapped on a boat with killer or killers creates its own tension. On top of that, the atmosphere of adventure is definitely present as well. I would have loved some darker thrills, but I think that's more of being spoiled by modern thrillers than anything Christie did wrong. In addition, I wish that we got more description of Egypt. So I don't really have more to elaborate on in that point. She does atmosphere well. I don't think she does it the best. Writing. Agatha Christie's writing style is not for everyone. It is classic and very to the point. However, I grew up with it, and I am quite partial to it. All right, plot. I really enjoyed the main plot of who killed Lynette. I feel like it took too long for the death to happen. I do still hold that. I was like 200 pages into a 420-page book, and I was like, when is someone going to die? Because usually that's what kicks off a Poirot novel. And here we're just like on a cruise ship, seeing how jealous everybody is and no one is dead. I also understand why, to really develop the relationships and potential motives for the suspects. So yeah, I wanted the death to happen, but I kind of knew why it took so long, because we were like, here's Jackie, here's info about her, here's Simon, some info, here's Lynette, some info. So I get why it took as long as it did. I actually figured out the ending early on, but Christie kept throwing red herrings that made me second guess my suspicions. There was also a subplot, the serial killer, that I thought was way underdeveloped, and I'll talk more about that under logistical issues. So there is a plot point about why we have a police officer on the ship, Inspector Race, and it's because there's a known serial killer on the boat, but we don't know who the serial killer is. I'll talk more about that in a second. But that was a subplot, and it was underdeveloped. Intrigue, I just wrote, yes, Agatha Christie is the master, 10 out of 10. So, okay, logistical issues. Here's the main things I want to discuss. So I did have some logistical issues, and I'm going to go point by point and then talk about them if there's anything more to say. 1, why were there 2 separate Maries? Both the former maid of Lynette and Marie von Schuyler Snyder, I can't remember her exact name right now. They were both named Marie. And this threw me for a loop, because at the very beginning, Lynette is explaining why her maid is upset, and her maid's name is Marie, and this is the Marie who, if you've read the book, she basically breaks up a relationship because Lynette is investigating Marie's boyfriend, and she finds out that he's already married, and so Marie is really upset and sad. Then later, we meet Marie von Snyder, and she's an old woman who is traveling from America. And I was like, are they the same person? Why, out of all of the names Christie could have chosen in the whole world, does she name two characters Marie? Because I was like, well, if this is actually former maid Marie, why is she old now? And she has a motive. She's upset with Lynette for breaking up her marriage. Okay, I'm back. My cat found a bug, so we had to take care of that situation because I don't do bugs. We were talking about Marie. So this is the same issue I had with J.K. Rowling naming the barkeeper Tom. Well, we also had a Tom Riddle. You have millions of names to choose from. Separate the two so that I don't start trying to make connections that don't exist unless you did it on purpose, and if you did, that's stupid. So that was my first logistical issue. Second logistical issue, I felt like the patrons on the boat should have been more stressed and chaotic over a string of murders. Not just one person died. 3 people ended up dying. And everybody's just like, cheers, let's have a drink while we look over the deck. I would have locked myself in my cabin and been like, I'm not coming out. I'm not going on an excursion. It stressed me out a little bit. So, number 3. People were literally shot in front of other people, and all we saw were non-reactions. There's a scene where I think it was Inspector Race and Poirot are sitting there at Simon's bedside, and bang, a shot comes in from the door and kills somebody else right in front of them, and everybody's like, I guess we should clean that up. Let me see if I can find that passage. Mrs. Otterborn is talking. She's saying, I know who killed Lynette, and she's going through some paragraphs. I'll start in the middle of her paragraph. I went along just as I had, and I would, and got the stuff from the man. I paid him or just had a word with him. Then I started back. Just as I came around the corner, I saw someone knock on the maid's door and go into the cabin. Race said, and that person was, bang! The noise of the explosion filled the cabin. There was an acrid, sour smell of smoke. Mrs. Otterborn turned slowly sideways, as though in supreme inquiry, then her body slumped forward and she fell to the ground with a crash. From just behind her ear, the blood flowed from a round, neat hole. There was a moment's stupefied silence. Then both the able-bodied men got to their feet. The woman's body hindered their movements a little. Race bent over her while Poirot made a cat-like jump for the door and the deck. The deck was empty. On the ground just in front of the sill lay a big Colt revolver. Nobody screamed. Nobody said, hey, stop! Just let her slump over, got to our feet, looked on the deck. I just felt like that was a little bit too little of a reaction. Okay, number 4. Why was the serial killer plot even there? It was there to get Colonel Race on the boat. That's why it was there. It's the only reason. Enjoyment. Despite its flaws and racist remarks that were a product of the time, I really enjoyed this novel. I sped through the last half. It's not my favorite Poirot or Christie, but it was very good. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the ending, because I think it's controversial, and I'm wondering if they're going to do the same ending as they did in the book. Because when you look at other stories, and I won't go into it, but if you know, you know, like, And Then There Were None, the book ending and the media endings, whether it's the play or the movie, are different. And here in this book, Jackie and Simon end up getting what they want. They work together to kill Lynette so that they could actually be together. Lynette was cool with her man marrying and doing another lady. But anyway, I guess it was all part of the gig. Anyway, all of that being said, in the end, they get caught. Jackie's like, hey, can I embrace my man one more time? When she's getting taken away by the police and Simon's being wheeled out on his stretcher. Says she loves him, and bang, she shoots him, and then she shoots herself. So for multiple reasons, I'm wondering if they stick with that or if they go in a different direction. I didn't mind the ending, and several people who buddy read this with me didn't seem to mind it either. I think that kind of ending can be done poorly and just feel a little bit more like a cop-out. I don't feel like it was a cop-out here, but I do think that there's other endings that could be explored. So I'm wondering how that's going to go in the movie. All of this said, things I'm looking forward to for the movie. Obviously, Poirot. I just love seeing Poirot come to life. He's an amazing character. Gal Gadot as Lynette, I just think is going to be stunning. She is beautiful. I'm looking forward to the costumes. I'm looking forward to the scenery, the setting, all of the little details. I just love this time period, and I think it's going to be a sweeping masterpiece of a film. I'm also looking forward to some of the changes they've made in the characters, and I think they've made specific changes to combat some of the racism and sexism. So you'll notice if you read the cast list that a lot of the character names are different and that they've casted a lot more people of color. So I'm excited about that. And I don't know, I'm really looking forward to this movie coming out. I haven't been as excited about a movie in a long time. I still haven't been to a movie theater throughout this whole pandemic, and Mississippi's numbers are still really high, so I don't know if I'll go see this in the theater, but it'll also be really fun to curl up with and watch at home, and I might have to do a movie reaction after I see it. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!